Right now on Tech Radio, guilty.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and around the world. You're welcome to episode 1109. This week, one of the biggest landmark tech cases for perhaps 20 years. CAB are causing us worry with crypto wallets, and real agentic computing has arrived this week. Plus, Ireland now has a phone answering service which is run entirely on AI, and it's brilliant. We'll give you a listen to how it sounds and chat with the developer, Sean McCarthy.
From techcentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Niall Kitson not here with us this week, but Jason is joining us instead. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Dusty. Thanks for having me on.
No bother. Always a pleasure. So listen, the big story of the week.
Yeah, you know this is a big story. I turned on the radio. I mean, we're immersed in tech news. It's a bit like the sea we swim in, but I turned on the radio this morning and mainstream news, top story, Meta and Google absolutely slammed by a US jury. And this is quite important stuff. This is well outside the kind of little narrow world of tech. It's about youth being addicted to social media, intentionally addictive user interface design, things like the infinite scroll, auto-playing videos. A big settlement. Both companies have said they're going to challenge the response. Google's response was a little bit more, as they say today, spicy than Meta's. Meta's was a fairly bland statement saying that they respectfully disagreed. Google said YouTube isn't social media, YouTube is video streaming. They're trying to ride two horses at once there. But yeah, this is a really important case, Dusty. I mean, do you have a sense that we've seen all of these issues around social media, things like bullying and eating disorders in children? We've seen social media bans for under 14s in Australia. We have all the political stuff that we've been worrying about since the Cambridge Analytica days. It really feels like this is the tide turning. The courts have noticed.
My immediate reaction to the results of the jury and the judge was, no shit, Sherlock. Because everything you say over has been a serious... I mean, if the EU is moving and Australia is moving to ban social media for kids, all right, this court case is like, it's only catching up. Like, it's way too late.
True, but we have to understand the jurisdictional difference there. And it's kind of...
There is that, and I do understand that. So yes, it is no surprise.
Well, the Americans are generally more free and open with companies can do what they like than we are. Maybe California less so than the rest of the states, but yeah, I see it as a kind of America catching up with the regulation that's been going on in other countries, and I think that's what's kind of interesting for the future.
I think it's interesting just for the background on why this came out. The jury were told not to actually look at the content. It wasn't about the content that was this woman said that she grew up with these platforms. She's 20 years of age now, and she said she ended up being addicted to Instagram and to YouTube. And with Instagram, she was spending like 16 hours a day just on Instagram looking at that the whole thing. All right. So when it got to court, the jury were told, don't look at the content. All right. It's not about the content. It's about the design. It's about deliberately setting up the algorithm to show whatever stuff to specific people that they know is going to keep them hooked. It's about the infinite scroll. It's about autoplay. It's about notifications, just in case you miss something. It's all of those designs. And the questions are really interesting that the jury had to answer. These are the questions the judge gave them. And in every single instance, the jury said yes. The questions were Meta and YouTube negligent in the design or operation of Instagram and YouTube? Yes. Did Meta and YouTube reasonably know that the design or operation of Instagram and YouTube was dangerous, especially when used by a minor? Yes. Did Meta and YouTube know, or should it reasonably have known, that users would not realize the danger? The jury said yes. Did Meta and YouTube fail to adequately warn of the danger? And I take it The jury actually said no, they didn't warn them, but it's a yes, you know what I mean there. Would a reasonable platform designer or operator under the same or similar circumstances have warned of the danger or instructed on the safe use of the platform? The jury said yes. I would have said, I'm not so sure. And was Meta and YouTube's failure to adequately warn or instruct a substantial factor in causing harm to the claimant in this particular case? And the jury said yes.
What's interesting about that one where you said you're not so sure is a lot is hanging on one word in that sentence. Let's read it again. Would a reasonable platform designer or operator under the same or similar circumstances have warned about the danger? Reasonable platform designer. That's a very heavy word.
I have seen the movie The Social Network, and I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg was portrayed as a reasonable platform designer in that movie. It's just my personal opinion.
I think we all agree with that, but I mean, I'm sure he would respond, well, look, that was a movie and it's narrative. There are facts out there, but let's take Google as a different example. The company that famously used to say, don't be evil. Well,
yeah. Now look at them. I think it's interesting what you say about putting the brakes on moving fast and breaking things, because that seems to have been, kind of the way with a lot of tech companies. I'm not necessarily going to say American, but with tech companies, I actually like the fact that you can move fast and break things, especially with technology. But you do have a responsibility to clients. I suppose really, do you know what? I think what it comes down to is there's no harm in moving fast and breaking things, but they deliberately set out to keep people on their platform for as long as possible so that people could see and interact with advertising. That was an absolute definite plan.
It was, and it makes perfect sense from the logical reasoning point of view that they would find themselves in these companies. But I would just query that slightly because, we have this situation where social media giants exist and they said, move fast and break things. There are certain things it is good to move fast and break. There are certain things it's not. And we really need to draw a distinction between them. You don't want critical infrastructure, boring. And I'm just speaking of IT here. I'm not talking about cars. We don't want cars that move fast and break, right? We want cars to be slowly improved over time. But, just think about IT. If you move fast and break the browser, it's a bit of an annoyance. You move fast and break, a word processor, you might put me off. If you move fast and break enterprise resource planning software, spreadsheets, stuff like that, you're damaging businesses. Now, no one's done that, but I'm just giving it as an example. So maybe what were we moving fast and breaking? If we mean move fast and break our own ideas about what a social network is, that's fine, no problem. If we're saying move fast and break people, move fast and break society, move fast and break norms that we have developed over hundreds of years, I'm not so sure about that.
Interesting point. Yes, moving fast and breaking things. Anthropic are doing a lot of that, and we've got a big story about them to come. But first, I wanted to share the story about CAB, the Criminal Assets Bureau. Oh my God. This has me worried about crypto and crypto wallets and all that kind of stuff. The story is, is that the Criminal Assets Bureau have cracked a very significant crypto wallet containing 500 Bitcoin, which is around 30 million. And that's part of a bigger haul of wallets, 12 in all, which have about 6,000 Bitcoin in it. So overall, there's 400 million up for grabs, and they've cracked the first wallet. Who had them? It was a guy living in Galway who was a cannabis dealer. He was arrested back in 2019, and while he was in custody, I believe he's still in prison at the moment, basically the landlord went, all right, I'm going to clear out the house. So part of the clear out of the house was there was a fishing rod case. And in that fishing rod case was the keywords for the guy's crypto wallets. This is what he needed to unlock the 6,000 Bitcoin that he had acquired in a fishing rod case, which the landlord went, whatever, chucked it out, went into a skip was shipped off to China, the whole thing got burnt. It's like a nightmare, all right? However, CAB, working with the European Cybercrime Centre, have been working on these wallets. I don't even know how they know about them, but anyway, they found out about them. So that's the first thing, they found out about them. Oh, well, tell me about that in a second. And then the second thing is, without knowing what the passphrase was, they still managed to access the wallet. How did they know that he had a whole load of wallets?
Yeah. Well, look, there's three different things going on here. I'm going to do the first one very quickly because I don't want to stick on it. This is a great yarn. If I was working at the Indo or the Herald or something like that, I'd have this on page one. It's just hilarious, right? But taking off my journalist hat and trying to think about what really matters here, there's two things. First of all, it would be absolutely ridiculous to claim that cryptocurrency is not used in the proceeds of crime and the commissioning of crime, right? That is true. But so is cash, right? And Bitcoin defenders have always said that. Those things are both true. I'm not trying to set up a false opposition here. However, there is a notion in society among Bitcoin users and among people reading the news that Bitcoin is untraceable. Bitcoin is not untraceable. The entire point of Bitcoin is that it is entirely traceable at all times. You always know where a coin is. You can check. It's public source information. Doesn't mean you can tie it to an individual person, but if you're a law enforcement officer, hey, that gets you a hell of a lot closer to them than banknotes do. So, Bitcoin is traceable. Second of all, and this is what's really interesting about this case, and this is the bit I didn't know, because I did know that first part, which is how they found these Bitcoins. We heard all this stuff in recent years. I was writing a lot about quantum computing. Oh my God, when it finally works, it'll blow open all cryptography, including cryptocurrency. Well, maybe it will. I don't know. But it looks like they've blown open cryptocurrency already, at least at the state level. The police and law enforcement agencies making, I have no doubt, major effort in using a lot of computational power and God knows what else, but they were able to crack them. They were able to get those pass keys. Those pass keys were burnt, destroyed, and they still got some of the money. So I can guarantee you they're going to get the rest. I don't know how they're doing it, but they have cracked it.
And that's the bit that kind of worries me, because yes, you say about Bitcoin, it's kind of like, how flexible, and you can transfer funds across borders, and it's a store of value, and all the other things to say about Bitcoin. You're absolutely right about it not being a hidden source of funds, because it is the most public of all. There is a public ledger, and every transaction is there for all to see, and especially the authorities when they know exactly what it is they're looking for. Also, I had heard earlier in the year that they have brought in, there's a common reporting standard that they use in banking, so they will kind of report your transactions and all that kind of stuff to various tax authorities. They've brought in something similar for Bitcoin and for crypto that has been in effect since the 1st of January this year. So it's already too late. Yeah.
Now, the question, I think, from your point of view, I know you're a bit of a crypto fan. I'm a big critic of it, not because it hasn't worked. I mean, it clearly has gone up in value, but I have sort of serious social and political doubts about it. But just technically, like, it has worked, okay? If you're a legitimate Bitcoin user, what's worrying about this isn't really that the state or the tax authorities theoretically could get in because you're a good boy and you're paying all your taxes. What's worrying is when the bad guys get this technology, which they will.
There's a big pregnant pause there.
Your wallet's not safe. Maybe you need it in cold storage.
Yes, but does cold storage even do it? Because cold storage is essentially just keeping all of your information, if you like, your side of the information, in some kind of a wallet or a digital wallet or whatever it is that you keep locked.
In the jargon of the security industry, it reduces the attack vector because the thing they're attacking is in your pocket or in a safety deposit bank box. It's not connected to the internet. Yeah, but the minute you connect it up to a computer and on the internet, you got the same problem again. But you can sort of lock it away. That's the only solution. It's a bit like saying, I don't trust the bank anymore. I'm going to keep all the banknotes in the safe.
Exactly. But the thing with this story is that the authorities, the Criminal Assets Bureau in this case, have found the wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have found a way to access the wallet without having any of that kind of stuff that you would keep in cold storage. They literally just knew what the wallet code was.
Yeah, as long as the wallet is online, they can access it. If the wallet's offline, they can access it if they get the physical object. And that's just the reality crypto users are going to have to cope with now.
Great story. Very, very interesting, as I say. What else have we got going on this week? Agentic computing. Let's go with that next. And this is Claude Cowork. Now, I'm hearing about this thing everywhere. Claude came in as an AI first, and you ask it questions, yada, yada, yada. And then you had a Claude Code, which was kind of something, it was misnamed really because it was just kind of an advanced version. And now we've got Claude Cowork, which is something that you could install on your computer. But firstly, you needed a third-party app, and then you would run Claude Cowork on top of that. But now they've got a self-contained version, so you just download it and run it on your app, and it's able to access folders on your computer and do kind of all kinds of cool things. This week, Anthropic have now, here's move fast and break things. They've now announced that Claude Cowork can actually operate the cursor on your screen and click on things. Meaning that Claude, if you give it permission, can open certain programs and do things on your behalf.
Yeah,
which is the whole idea of agentic.
This is great, and it's worrying, but it's genuinely positive because regular readers of Tech Central will have read my thoughts on AI over the last couple of years, from alarm to trying to take it seriously to just find the balance, really use it and make sense of it. So on and so forth. And it has been a fascinating image generation and text generation tool, research tool, genuinely useful, good for writing emails, etc. This changes it. You predicted at the end of, I think it was the end of 2024, that 2025 was going to be the year of agentic AI, and it didn't quite work out because I remember you talking about that at the next end of your show. I think this is the year because this is where you were just a year ahead, Dusty. Once this thing, what do we really use AI for? We really use it for things like emails because they're boring and annoying and they have to be done. Tedious tasks. Agentic AI, where it can control your computer, allows it, you can just say to it, look, I want you to perform some task on a file on my computer or on the web. I want you to buy me tickets. And it just goes in and does the thing. Now, let's say it does it right. That we need to make sure that it's doing it right. But if it works, this is genuinely a big productivity and leap forward in other ways as well. The question is this permission. Do I want to give permission to a machine to control my machine? I personally don't. I think most people will.
I think most people will. And my attitude, because I'm a tin hat person, but I just kind of go, well, you can't fight it, so to hell, go with it. But you're right. Now, Anthropic do say that the Claude has to ask permission, and before it's able to use a particular app or program on your computer, you must give a specific permission to in order to do that. But the thing is, I don't trust it.
Yeah, well, what's the nightmare? It's going to delete your files. That's bad. It gets your credit card and starts buying things. I mean, you ask it to do a comparison shop on, I don't know, a new Ferrari versus a Fiat, and it buys you one. I mean, that's the nightmare. And that's where I would have concerns about it. I would also have sort of general, as you call it, tinfoil hat sort of privacy concerns about it. But nonetheless, from a technical and productivity point of view, this is good, and it's the direction AI should be going in my opinion, which is dealing with mundane tasks, not stealing our creativity.
There was a wee bit of bad news from Google recently, and that they are getting everybody who puts stuff onto their Play service that they have to have developer accounts that are verified. So you can't just kind of go in and set up a developer account and add your app. You now have to supply government ID. You have to pay for a subscription, yada, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And there was a worry that this would bring an end to, they're also going to stop sideloading as part of this. And as I'm sure you may know, sideloading gives you the ability to load up some non-approved apps by Google, which are interesting.
Yeah.
He said in the one I'm thinking of is an app called NewPipe, which I sideloaded and basically allows me to access YouTube without YouTube showing me any of the videos. It's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, this is a problem, and it's a problem we've created for ourselves, and it's one that's not going to go away, which is that when you had the computer, the personal computer, from 77 to the one you're probably using today, it's your machine at the end of the day. You're in control. You own it. You own what the software does. You may or may not understand it, but you decide what gets installed on it, so on and so forth. With phones, we never really had that model. Phones were much more locked down devices, walled gardens, and there were security reasons for that to do with keeping people away from the mobile phone baseband and all kinds of stuff. But it was also a gigantic opportunity for profit making, which is why Apple got in on it. Remember when the iPhone was launched, it didn't support apps. There was no plan for apps on smartphones. They came a year later. Apps were an accident, and they turned out to be a very, very profitable accident for both Apple and Google and everyone else who has launched their own walled garden store. You were always able to get around it, though. You could get around it on iOS a little bit. It's quite hard, but you could do it. Android gave you a way to do it. You can install an app that's not in the App Store. You have complete control of your phone. This is great. But it does introduce a certain amount of technical risk, security risk to your phone and to the Android platform. And it also interferes with their ability to coin hyper profits. So it was always going to be cut off. But the big philosophical question here is, do we want open platforms or do we want closed platforms? And I don't mean open like Linux where you have to learn it all yourself. I do those things. Weirdos like me, that's fine. But I think a genuine sort of standard open platform, a bit like what we expect from Mac OS, what we expect from Windows, open, not necessarily open source would be good, but open as in it's free for you to use in whatever way you see fit. I think we need to see that in the smartphone world. I just don't think we're going to see it in the smartphone world.
Well, Google have said that they're going to crack down, so all of the developer accounts must be verified. However, they will still allow sideloading. All right. However, it will be tied down a lot more. So the new process from later on in the year is that you will still have to enable developer mode on your phone, which a lot of people won't do. In order to sorry?
A lot of people won't be able to do if it requires, a much more complicated registration process.
Well, possibly. But I think enabling developer mode on your phone, because you don't need to be a registered developer with Google in order to enable developer mode on the phone. But they have brought in, I think it's kind of a clever thing, where you have to enable developer code, then you have to restart the phone. And the thinking behind that is that if you are being talked through the process by a scammer on the phone, having to restart the phone, of course, cuts off the phone call. So I think that's kind of a good thing. And then another good thing is then you have to wait 24 hours or some period like that in order to confirm that you are happy to sideload apps onto your phone. So I think there's a wee bit of protection and it's good. And I kind of like that. If I'm understanding it right, I understand the need for protection, but at the same time, I love the fact that it's still allowed because, as I say, some of those side-loaded apps can be quite interesting and you play around with them and stuff like that. So anyway, that's that was a wee bit of good news. It looks like I might be able to continue using my new Pipe app in order to watch YouTube without ads. Listen, we're going to wrap up with a special anniversary in just a few moments' time. But quickly, one other thing that I welcome, and that is Alexa Plus will soon have the ability to swear, apparently. Right? Yeah. Amazon are bringing in personality types for Alexa Plus, and they've got one that they're calling sassy.
Yeah. I've noticed this a lot. I've noticed this a lot in my interactions with some of the AIs. For example, Claude, Anthropic's AI, is quite happy to swear back at you, not aggressively telling you to sod off or whatever, but it will mirror your language. Other ones are a lot more protective and the guardrails are much more strict. So it's interesting that Amazon, which is definitely increasingly pushing Alexa as an AI tool, that's going to be an AI interface. That's the plan. They're going down that road. You're not going to let kids do it. You're going to have to jump through certain hoops. That links back to our meta story. Will they really make it as difficult to enable as they're claiming? Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Adding a little bit of personality to a computer, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I would need to have a very long think about it.
Well, I think it's a good thing because I have spent many hours cursing at Alexa. So it'd be nice if it gave it back a little bit. Listen, last story this week, Twitter. We're still calling it Twitter. 20 years ago this week, it was actually last Sunday, and I love the numbering on this. If only Jack Dorsey had waited 2 minutes. However, at 2:20 a.m. on March 22nd in 2006, Jack Dorsey sent the first tweet saying, "Just setting up my Twitter," and Twitter was born.
Yeah. I was told to go on to it by, if you remember, .NET magazine, which was a kind of magazine aimed at web developer types. Yeah. So I was really in there in the early days, and I spoke to the other co-founder, whose name eludes me at the moment. Strange American name, wasn't Jack. It was set up to be used on mobile phones. The original 140 character limit was 168 characters accepted by an SMS, plus reserving a few of those for the username. And the idea was you would follow 5 people and you would get their messages as an SMS. The web interface was a kind of afterthought, and suddenly people started following strangers, and they were following 600 people or 6,000, and we had to turn off the SMS feature because you were getting a little bit too many text messages. But there's an alternative universe out there where it continued as being a sort of social service for people you genuinely know. What it actually became was probably not the world's biggest social network, but for a long time, probably the world's most important in terms of all the opinion formers who used it and all of that kind of stuff. It's just in terrible decline now, which is mostly Elon Musk's fault, but not entirely. It was already on the ropes before he took over, but it has been comprehensively destroyed, in my opinion, since then. But more interestingly, you get these, spin-off apps have come out like Blue Sky and alternatives like Mastodon, and you have all these other social media apps that have risen and fallen. TikTok. I think the halcyon days of social media are over. I think people are going to use it, and they'll sign up to video apps and photo sharing, and they'll still talk. But this kind of, I'm always on my Facebook, I'm always on Twitter, it's the center of my universe, I get all my news there, I think those days are dead. That experiment failed.
I think it's funny how you invent something and you put it out in the world expecting A, and then people find it and then they just do B, C, and D with it.
The story of humanity, it's our endless creativity. We as a species, we are ridiculous, absurd, and amazing.
There you go. And on that note, a positive note, we shall say. Jason Walsh, thank you for keeping us up to date with tech news this week.
Thanks, Dusty.
This is Tech Radio from techcentral.ie. Get every episode of Tech Radio by clicking follow on your podcast player right now.
If you've ever tried to get a plumber or an electrician, you'll be familiar with calls ringing out or going to voicemail, which just can be a bit frustrating. An Irish company called Bot Bureau is working to fix this, though, by building an AI to answer calls and to interact with people in a real human-like manner. It's not a robotic press 1 for sales system. We're talking about a full conversational AI that speaks with a natural Irish accent, understands local dialects, and takes bookings and does things on the fly. Recently, I spoke with Bot Bureau founder Sean McCarthy to find out more, but let's start with a sample call of how it works. Take a listen.
Hi there, you're through to Dustpot. I'm an AI agent and can help you right now with answers to questions. If there is anything I cannot answer, I can arrange a call back at a time that suits you. Calls are recorded. How can I help you today?
Hi, I'd like to arrange for somebody to call me with a general inquiry about podcasting and how it works.
No problem at all. I can arrange a call back for you. Would you prefer to be contacted by phone or email?
By phone, please.
Great. What's your full name, please?
It's Dusty Rhodes.
Thanks a million, Dusty. And what phone number would be best for the callback? We can use the one you're calling from or a different one if you prefer.
Call me on 087 123 456.
Thanks, Dusty. And what topic would you like to discuss regarding podcasting?
Just a general inquiry.
No problem at all. So, just to confirm, I have your name as Dusty Rhodes, the callback number as 087 123 456, and the topic as a general inquiry about podcasting. Is that all correct?
That's correct, yes. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Dusty. Thanks a million for calling. Have a great day yourself.
Okay, so now we're back in the studio. That's a sample of me interacting with one of the Bot Bureau bots and having a chat. And I hope you found it impressive. Sean, the founder of the company, is with me at the moment. Sean, that blows standard IVR and please press 1 for such and such out of the water. I mean, can you walk us through the system?
Yeah. Look, thanks a million for bringing me on to talk about this, Dusty. This is really cool technology, right? I've spent 20 years building tech systems for firms in Ireland, and this is the first time I've really got excited about a new wave of technology that we can implement very quickly for Irish businesses. And let me talk a little bit about how it works. Whenever we've got customers phoning in, historically, they would go through IVR systems, push 1, push 2, push 3, right? And if you think about trying to design those systems, you know what your kind of outcome is, and you build these decision trees, and it gets complicated. And if you don't come up with exactly the right scenario that your customer wants to address, there's a gap, right? The customer gets frustrated. They get, things take too long. And now we've got this wave of technology with conversational AI where the AI can react to whatever the customer is asking for. Now, there are limitations to what it can do, and I'll talk about those shortly, but conversations between you and me, conversations between you and your friends, conversations with anyone in business can take any tangent. So for AI to be able to react to that quickly and understand what the tangent is going down, or on what way we want to follow on a conversation, what the next most logical question is to ask, we're now at a stage where technology is able to react very well to that.
We saw that in the demonstration that I did, because I'm just changing my mind and it's catching up. How are you able to... It's kind of like a killer for voice AIs, the delay between the processing, because it has to go speech to text, think about what it's going to do, and then it has to think it out in text because it's a computer, and then it has to convert it back into speech. And how do you handle those kind of awkward 3-second silences?
I think that the type of models that we use behind the scenes, right? So if your listeners are familiar with LLMs and familiar with AI models to some extent, you probably use ChatGPT, or you might have used Gemini or Claude or something like that to go and chat with on the web. There's actually a range of different models with different capabilities. Some of them are very, very sophisticated and can handle extremely complex questions and queries, but they take a while. You might have seen reasoning models and things like that. You couldn't put a reasoning model here because of that delay, because it would have to think about, well, what are all the possible permutations? What is the pattern I'm trying to match to here? But there are models which are designed to be very, very low latency. And that's a technical term for super quick, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to predict as fast as possible what is the most likely scenario that someone is going to ask next. And that's where the speed comes from. And you need that speed to be able to maintain a conversation. If you ask a question, 4-second delay response, you'll hang up in 3 or 4 conversation points later. But actually, if it's fast enough, albeit on a limited level of complexity, actually that starts to become very usable. Because whenever people phone up, we don't get a range of everyone has a possible, 100,000 possible things they could say. They don't. Yeah. People phone up and say they have the same patterns in conversation, and the models are built on that, and that is what lets them be very quick.
So essentially kind of what you're looking at is, when it comes to an AI, it really is a very limited amount of information that it has to try and figure out. No matter if you go through, if there's 1,000 combinations of what somebody could say, that's still nothing to a computer. So you use a low latency model for that. Yeah.
Yeah. These large language models, lots of them are trained on everything the internet has ever had. Conversations don't go with that, right? People don't talk about everything the internet's ever had, every part of a history book that's ever been digitized and put into these models. We're not talking about the scope of everything that is possible in the human connection. We're talking about a conversation with a business.
Yeah. Tell me then about the Irish angle, all right? So, and there's 2 angles on this, right? I love the accent of the particular, but now there's lots of different voices you can choose if you want to use this service, but I particularly like that Dublin one, and I think at one stage when I was trying it out, the AI actually said to me, fair play to you, thanks.
Yeah.
I was bowled over by that. But when it comes to Irish names and Irish place names, AIs can struggle with names like Siobhan or Dunleary. How do you fine tune your model for Irish phonetics?
So actually, we went through quite a long process of trying to figure out what are the most likely phrases and words and names and place names that someone is going to talk about in Ireland. And, Ireland is not a large place. So we have 200 towns in Ireland. So we can take 200 names of towns and phonetically figure out what's the best way to pronounce it. Now, as well as I do, right? If I'm from Belfast, I pronounce things differently to someone from Dublin, to someone from Cork or Limerick. Yep. So we've made best endeavours to say, this is how I think Drogheda is pronounced, So you go in and you say, well, pronounce Drogheda, but don't pronounce the G, right? So we define this is the best way to pronounce these type of names. But also then, whenever we give them that phonetic dictionary or phonetic alphabet in the background, then they can use the AI uses that when it tries to interpret other names that we haven't given it. Okay, so we say, this is how you spell Siobhan, or how you pronounce Siobhan or Neve or Maeve or Drada, whatever it is. And it says, well, based on that information, I know that I'm more likely to try and get Aving correct. So we went through a long process of trying it and trial and error at the start, Dusty, and then understanding that by giving these AI agents more information, more context, it does well with trying to predict, okay, that's the information I know, and here's what I will do next with that information.
And then the other way around, when Irish people are speaking to the AI, how do you handle that? Because, I mean, there are people from Donegal, there are people from West Cork. I don't understand.
Yes, and you also have to take into consideration things like noisy phone lines. What if someone's in the middle of a busy office or on the bus?
True, yeah.
Because the agent will pick up that maybe there's another voice in the background, maybe there's another conversation happening beside you in the seat.
Yeah.
So it's trying to interpret everything that's coming down the phone line. And it's also then trying to figure out what is the next most likely thing that's going to happen. So with that, the technology of turning speech to text, which is ultimately what these models are trying to do, is not new, right? If anyone tried to use Microsoft Bob back in the day and tried to, synthesize speech back in old systems back in the 90s, it was really terrible. But these systems have been built off all of the knowledge since then. So every time that someone phones on, and we use Siri on our phones, we use various technologies over the last number of years, and all of that data has fed into it. So I would be lying, Dusty, if I said, I've built a fantastic model that has been able to turn Donegal accents into, text that an AI agent can understand. The technologies that I've used to build it are very sophisticated now in a way they were not 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 2 or 3 years ago. The technology is moving at a very rapid pace. Conversational AI, which is the blanket term for what I'm doing here, 12 months ago was pretty good. 6 months ago got very good. And 2 years from now, who knows how good it's going to be. But it's on a trajectory where it is improving at a rate of knots.
You've been involved in tech for a long time, like the rest of us.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think this tech is moving at a faster pace? Is this the fastest pace you've seen a technology develop at?
So I suppose it's hard to say if it's because the technology is amazing or because people are more ready for it. Because if you think about 20 years ago, technology literacy in the general population, in SMEs, in businesses was on the lower end. We all got connected with the mobile. The iPhone came out, and suddenly we all got our expectations increased of what technology could do. Then you look at things like cloud computing, software as a service. That all just changed our perception of technology in the last 10 or 20 years. So now where we are, we're very willing to try these things. And because we tried AI and it worked really well, notwithstanding the technology is really impressive and it is moving very, very quickly. And a lot of that is scale and infrastructure and things like that. But the technology is really good. Adoption, people are more willing to try it and more willing to adopt. So I think the combination of the two has meant, at least the perception is that the technology is flying, right?
Yeah. That is the technology. And it's the speed at which it's improving. And Google were slow out of the gates with AI, I thought, but now they are developing at a scary rate and they're doing way better, I think, than the company. Anyway, we're getting into a conversation about AI and we want to talk about bot bureau. Let's get back to that. Tell me about context switching, because I like that as kind of like, I want to make an appointment for Tuesday. No, actually make it Wednesday. How, if a caller interrupts the AI or is jumping from booking an appointment to ask you about pricing and then going back to an appointment, how does the AI handle that?
It handles it really well, right? And it's because it's trained on a lot of, so the underlying models we use are trained on a lot of information, right? And that's kind of it's trained on everything the internet's ever had, that kind of level of volume.
Okay. Yeah.
But whenever somebody comes and configures a phone assistant on Bot Bureau, they give it as much information about their business as they can. And that might be putting in their website, might be putting in frequent asked questions, might be uploading PDF documents, sales packs, product specs, whatever it is. So that's kind of a starting position for the agent to say, when I'm representing this business on the phone, I have a bunch of content that I can go and reference. In terms of actually context switching, it depends. There's an open question about how these models actually work under the covers. right? Are they actually really performing reasoning or really performing thought? Or are they just pattern matching? And I'm not smart enough to tell you what the answer is, right? There are researchers all around the world arguing about this. So I'm not the man to come and tell you what the answer is. However, what I can tell you is the impact of it is the context switching is incredibly easy for them, because whether they're pattern matching or reasoning, they're doing it at such a fast rate, faster than humans would do it, that if you ask it, what's the weather like, and then you want to book an appointment, then you want to change the appointment, then you want to cancel something, then you ask about a product spec, and then you ask about something else, no problem. This thing pings all around the place and can go whichever way you want the conversation to go.
What about then if the AI comes across something that it doesn't know or that it doesn't understand? Is it able to ask the person questions so that it can get an understanding?
Yeah, so there's two parts to that question, right? And that's a really interesting one. First of all, if it doesn't understand what the person has said, it should clarify. It should come back and say, sorry, I'm not quite sure what you meant. And back to the question about accents and things like that. Maybe it hasn't quite picked something up. Maybe there's noise in the line. Maybe it doesn't understand the intention of the caller. And it will say, can you repeat that? Can you understand? This is what I'm trying to get to, right? Much in the same way, if you had somebody answering the phone in your office, would hopefully do for you as well, right? So there's that clarification piece. Something that's it's more complex to understand is around hallucinations, right? Hallucinations is something that people might have seen whenever they use AI themselves. Yeah. If the AI doesn't have the underlying knowledge of what it is that's being asked, sometimes it bridges the gap and it tries to fill in the gap.
Yeah, it's making stuff up,
Making stuff up without actually knowing what the context is. And the example that I have when I was working with one of my customers was they had a link to a booking website, but actually the payment wasn't made in the booking website, but they didn't tell the AI that the payment wasn't made in the booking website. Okay? Yeah. You went and you booked, but you paid somewhere else. But the information hadn't been given to the AI. So what the AI was saying, go and make a booking and make your payment on the website. And that little just extra part of the sentence was a hallucination. Now, the way we try to address that is say, give it as much information as you can. Whenever you see a scenario like that, go and tell it what the right answer is. Okay? Now, the way, and this is one for the AI researchers, right? The way AI works, I'm not sure, as sophisticated as all these models will ever get, that they will totally get rid of hallucinations. But every time you see Google come out with a new model, or OpenAI come out with a new model, or Anthropic come out with a new model, they always say that, we're getting better. Hallucinations are reducing. It's more sophisticated now. Fantastic. Will it ever get to zero? Probably not. Are there ways that we can mitigate that and get our customers to give it as much information about their relevant services as possible? Yeah. We can certainly work on that. The comparison I have there, Dusty, is if you were to hire someone to answer the phones for you, would you be 100% guaranteed that they're going to say the right thing every time on the phone? No. You'd have to keep training them. You'd have to keep saying, well, in this scenario, I know I didn't cover this before, but in this scenario, this is what you should do next. This is what you should say, right? And you would constantly change that script that they would use on the phone. Much in the same way you would train these models. You would say, in this scenario, here's what you should do next. And I understand that you didn't say the right thing the last time. Here's what you should say the next time.
And like anybody working in any organization, any job, it's experience. That's what they call experience. And you're doing the same thing with the AI. Just getting away from the AI side of things and more into the practical side of the system. Let me just ask you quickly about, so the AI is taking a call, it has a conversation with somebody, then how does it let the tradesperson or your client know that somebody's been on the phone and what they said?
Yeah, so at the end of the call, right, so somebody has had their interaction with the AI, they have hung up the phone, then we start our post-call processing. And that happens very quickly in the space of about 30 seconds or a minute. We analyze everything from the call. We then come up with a very quick summary. So the call might have lasted 5 or 10 minutes. Give us a 3-sentence summary of what was discussed. Pull out what were the key actions, and then run a couple of checks over it. So sentiment analysis, was the customer generally positive or negative? There's a topic classification. Is this an urgent thing you have to get back to? Is it just a quote request? Is it a cancellation? Is it a nuisance call? We try to identify things like that. We try to identify things like a lead score. So is this a hot lead? Someone is ready to spend their money with you. You need to get back to them quickly. Or is it just an inquiry about services or something like that? So we try to give as much extra information as we can at the end of a call. Then that data goes a couple of places, right? It goes onto our portal, so you can see your full call history and you can kind of prioritize at the end of the day, who are you going to phone first? Right, so if you have 20 missed calls in the day and they've all gone through this service, you can say, well, here's a positive call, here's a hot lead, here's someone who needs an urgent callback or something like that. And you can prioritize how you go about solving all of those challenges. You also get an email straight away. So you don't have to be logged into our system. It can come through as an email. You can pick that up on your phone. There are options now to be able to get a text message at the end of a call. So assuming it's not a call abandoned, right? So some people phone in as soon as they, hear voicemails or AI, they know it's not for me. So you can exclude those and you can get a text message when it's a real call or there's real urgency needed. There's also the option, and we've done this with a number of clients, is if you actually use systems like CRM systems or ticketing systems to manage all of your calls and all your callers and all of your service, we can push all the data into that system for you. So we have a number of our customers don't use Bot Bureau dashboard at all, right? Maybe for checking on balances and things like that, but actually servicing their customers, they would use their CRM system. The call just comes into that and is tagged as a lead or tagged as a service request or whatever it is. And they then manage it in the way they manage all of their inbound comms. So we're trying to make it as seamless as possible for them, knowing that the reason they would use our service is because they are time poor.
Finally, Sean, can I ask you about people who dial a number and they get an AI that they're not expecting to get an AI? What's the reaction from them? There's a range of responses to it. I think the people who hang up straight away are the people who wouldn't leave voicemail anyway, right? I think there's an angle to that. However, people who go more than 2 sentences into a conversation realize that actually this is not IVR. This is not press 1 for service, press 2 for sales. This can go whichever way you want. And the response has been fantastic. Some of the people, some of the conversations we see and we talk to our customers about, we people phoning up and getting to the end of a call and saying, thanks for your time, to the AI, only to realize, oh, sorry, you're not a real person, right? Or getting to the end and then testing it to say, do you fancy going for a pint tonight? Just to see what it would get out of those questions. And I think that the response has been very positive. People engage with it very quickly. Whenever we were building this originally, trying to figure out, is this only going to be super techie people who are going to interact with this at all? Very quickly that fell apart because actually everyone interacts with this. It's just a conversation. Once you get 2 or 3 sentences in, you can take it any direction. And that's, I think, the power of this. Grand. Well, listen, I wish you the very best of luck with it. It's very impressive. If you'd like to try it out for yourself, go to the website botbureau.ie. While there's a phone number. You can just dial it and speak to an AI, try it out. Or you can set up a free account and you're able to make a call online to try it with your specific company information. I'll have all of those details in the description area of this podcast. But for now, Sean from botbureau.ie, thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you, Dusty.
This is Tech Radio.
That's it for our show this week. Do join us again next Friday with a brand new show. In the meantime, remember to share our podcast with a friend. Just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. Until then, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Jason Walsh, thanks for listening. Take care.
Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io. From me, Artemis, goodbye.